Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and audience. We are back with another edition of Way of the Warrior. My name is Trevor Martin, and I am the founder of RMF Coaching. And one of the things that I really like to do on Way of the Warrior is go out into social media and talk to individuals, warriors, if you will, powerful leaders that are set on putting goodness, back into this dark world. And it just so happens, once again, I found an individual, and her name is, and I'm going to hope that I get your first name right, because I mess this up all the time. Is it Dr. Doriana?
Yeah,
Yes,
you got it.
nailed it. So I wanted to say thank you very, very, very much for joining me today.
No, thanks, Trevor. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So one of the things that we always kind of do these in a couple different ways, but the main process is kind of taking a step back into your past, into kind of what started your journey to get you to where you're at today, and then we talk about that. But then we also look towards the future and what you're going to be offering, how you're helping promote that goodness that we were talking about earlier into the world. So if you could you take us back a little bit? What brought you, what got you to current state? What were some of the things that you struggled with, some of the obstacles that you overcame, that the audience is going to be like, you know what, that's a lesson for me? And I do apologize, I don't know why the light keeps fading in and out, but I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Trevor. Yes, I was just thinking Doriana is hard enough. My maiden name, my married name is Parkin, so that's super easy.
That's
My
super
maiden
easy.
my maiden name is Operisano, so I'm just thinking it's a good thing I didn't have to teach you how to say that one.
I I would have murdered it.
Ah, all right. So yeah, so thanks for having me. So a little bit of my backstory. So I am a family doctor in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. And so I worked for 15 years as a family physician in my own community. And then about a year and a half ago, I decided after many months of contemplating that I was going to close my clinical practice and really shift gears. So
Okay.
there's a lot, sort of a lot of things that contributed to that. Um, the healthcare system right now in Ontario for primary care, meaning your GP or your family doctor, we are struggling. We are struggling. There was a new contract that came out for family doctors. We were just kind of on the back end of COVID, coming out of that with a ton more just work. It was just the work got sort of exponential. The contract that we got was just not really favorable to me.
Okay.
And so after sort of 6 months of contemplating going back and forth, I decided that I was going to kind of shift things a little bit. So I closed my clinical practice, but while I was still working, I started my Instagram page. I started on social media and I just started
Nice.
posting things. Yeah, kind of just like tips and a little bit of an insight into what it's like to be a working, busy, woman. I happen to have 3 children, but there's a lot of busy women out there who, don't have children, but they might have, demanding jobs, or they might be caregivers to other family members. And I just started posting information on how to find that balance where you're taking care of yourself nutritionally, you're taking care of yourself physically, and you're taking care of yourself mentally.
Mm,
And sort of over the course of a few months, and working with a coach, a business coach, I developed a program. I started
okay.
a company called Simply Fit Wellness.
Yeah.
Simply Fit without the I. There's no I in Simply. I guess it was just to make your life simple. Um,
Worked
so
out.
Simply Fit Wellness. And then what I did was I developed my program called Beautifully Raw. And Beautifully Raw is a coaching program. It's a 3-month program where I basically help women. A lot of women come to me with a primary goal of weight loss.
Okay.
But the program has 3 kind of pillars. There's nutrition, exercise, and self-care. And so, where did this come from? So I grew up, I was overweight as a child. I was always very self-conscious about it, struggled a ton with self-image. I was doing diets by the time I was 11.
Oh, wow.
But I was, yeah, yeah. By the time I was 11, I remember I did like a beet diet. And I remember I grew up in that environment. I grew up in the diet culture environment, watching All the women around me do it. My mom, her friends, my own friends. Um, and then, kind of tack that on to 15 years of practice where I was able to kind of come out of that and learn some ways of instilling health and wellness into my life that were sustainable. But then I was having patients come to me that were struggling so much with yo-yo dieting, not knowing how to keep the weight off, wanting to
Yeah.
do these fad diets. And honestly, it got to a point where I was just heartbroken for all these patients that, would beg me to send them to a program where I knew they were going to lose a significant amount of weight, and I knew they were going to gain all that weight back plus
Yeah.
more, because they weren't doing it sustainably. They weren't doing it through the lens of education. And so what my goal is when I work with my clients, so I do private coaching, I do group coaching. What I do is I really, really stress that I teach them. I'm going to teach them how to eat properly. I'm going to teach them why they're eating what they're eating. And then I'm going to get them to um, I basically get them to make new habits, and I teach them how to stick to those habits. And those
Yeah.
habits have to do with their meal prepping, with their exercise, with their self care. Because if you're not setting these things as habits in your daily life, then they're not going to be sustainable. There's so much involved in weight loss and health and wellness that is not just about the food you eat, right? It's
Oh,
about the
absolutely.
habits you're making. It's about the environment you're making around yourself. It's about how you talk to yourself. What do you do when you kind of fall off, the wagon, so to speak?
Right.
And so that's why self-care is a really critical part of the program, because if you're not taking care of yourself and being a little bit kind to yourself, it makes your journey a lot more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sitting here thinking, just when you were talking about 11 years old and, sitting there, already looking at how can I fit in, right? Or, how can I make
Yeah.
sure that I'm skinnier? You know what? I don't like, I'm not comfortable with where I'm at. Society isn't telling that or isn't making me feel any better about myself. So I'm
Yeah.
at age 11. Isn't that crazy? At
Yeah.
age 11, we're going, man, I'm not happy with myself. Instead of
Yeah.
enjoying the life that we're meant to live,
Yeah.
right, the gift of that, instead of we're hit with all these different variables, and we're like, you know what? This is
Yeah.
at age 11, this isn't good enough. I've got to start making some changes because everybody else is telling me to, or in here, right? We just get swayed with all of that. That's
Yeah.
crazy. You know,
Yeah.
I I can relate to that, not in the weight loss realm, but I can relate to I was on the other side. I was extremely, extremely skinny. I mean, my Adam's apple stuck out farther than my nose. Like it was bad. Like I mean,
Yeah.
I wanted to put on weight. I mean, you could play a tune on my ribs. It was that bad.
Yeah.
And but I can remember thinking, I wish I was more physically fit. I wish I was bigger. Because I wanted to play I want to, I want to play sports. I want to be able
Yes.
to hit hard. I want to be able to run fast, all of those things. So it's funny that when all those wants start stacking up, what that
Yeah.
does up here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instantly.
Yeah. And it's gosh, there's like, everybody has a story, and like I could
Oh,
spend an hour just telling all the things that led me to where I am. But yes, I was the girl who was, a little bit overweight. I had really crooked teeth. I had curly hair, curly hair. Like the amount of times I was made fun of because of my hair, and so these are the things that really like kind of settle deep down into the files of your brain.
preach.
Your parents tell you that you're beautiful and you're smart, and but you don't see that.
Yeah.
um and then same thing, I wanted to be athletic and I was never naturally athletic, and then I kind of had FOMO my whole teenage and young adult life, because I wanted to be the soccer player, I wanted to be the basketball player, but I just wasn't good enough. So but so here's the thing, and this is what I really try and teach my clients, is that it is never too late. It is net like, honestly, if I can say this, it comes from a bucket of truth, because when I was 30, about 36, I found CrossFit. I happened to a friend of mine said, let's go do this class. I don't know what it's about. I walked into a CrossFit gym. And this is like the unathletic girl who joined the rugby team in high school because it was the only team I would make because there weren't enough girls. So that's how the desperation for the athleticism and just wanting to do a sport. I
Huh.
walked into that CrossFit gym. I did a class, and I've been doing CrossFit for 9 years, and I am absolutely addicted to CrossFit. So, but this is yeah, right? The girl who, like, I had none of that self confidence, none of that self esteem. And now I'm doing rope climbs. I'm climbing up 15 feet. I'm deadlifting, I'm bench pressing, I've got muscles now that I never had, right?
I'll
And I'm
prove.
46. So this is what I tell my clients. Like, I know where you are right now because I've been in that mental headspace. I know what it's like to hate the reflection in the mirror, and it's not just about the appearance, it's about how you feel inside, right? I get that. I understand it. And now I'm going to walk you through how to get to the best possible version of yourself and actually feel proud of yourself and love yourself. Because that's hard. It's hard to do that.
It right? You know what's funny? It is hard to love yourself, right? And as coaches, like as mentors, as individuals, it's way easier to get on. Like I'm thinking of like the post that I dropped this morning on LinkedIn. I'm like, you know what? It's time to go to work. It's time to do this. Let's go. You can do it. And then
Yeah.
I walk into the gym. I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like,
I
and
know.
like, you know what? Should I do it? I mean, I just kind of dropped a message saying we should probably do it. So I guess I
Right?
probably should do it. But it's so much easier to pump up the masses and go, let's go, yo, let's go, baby.
Yep.
We can do this. And then
Yep.
it's your turn, and you're going, well, I just kind of want to sit down and eat some pizza. And
Yeah.
man, I don't even want to talk about it, right? I absolutely
Exactly.
isn't that's crazy. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's so much easier to dial it up for other people, but for ourselves, we're like, I can be mediocre today. That'll be okay.
Right? You know what? I think there's a couple things that I think we need to sort of like that we can go into. The first one is that because somebody asked me this in another podcast actually, and they framed it such that they said, for think about doctors. How many doctors do you know that are out of shape? Like, if they're the ones telling people to do all these things to keep their cholesterol low, and right, it's the same thing as coaches. Like, it's easy for us to say, but why do we have a hard time with it sometimes? And it's just because we're human beings like everybody else, right?
Preach.
You still struggle with the same things that your clients struggle with,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
a dad, you're trying to get your workouts in, you're trying to eat healthy, but you're time restricted. You've got deadlines to meet, you've got bills to pay. We all have those things, right? Whether
Mm.
you're a coach or a doctor or a stay at home mom, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, because we're human, we all struggle with the same challenges. But what you and I are good at doing, and this is how we help people, is not only do we coach people and tell them what to do, but we show them how to do it when we have the same struggles, right? So,
Yeah.
despite you having a baby who needs to be fed and who's cranky, or maybe who has a fever, right?
Yeah.
Despite me having a real big sweet tooth, because that's the one thing I keep telling all my content is, like, I love
Mine's
sweets.
salt.
Salt, right? Okay, so we're opposite ends of the spectrum. But so I always tell my clients, look, guys, I eat some sort of chocolate every day. But how do I keep my health goals in check? How do I keep my weight in check? How do I keep my fitness in check? By doing that. So it's not about restricting, it's about learning what balance looks like, right?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
So you might not be able to give your 150% workout today, but maybe you can give 60%, and that's still something.
Absolutely. And to your point, like that's better than nothing. That's better than
Exactly.
sitting still, sitting stagnant, right? Because you're actively making a choice. You're choosing to go from here, like, you know what? I can do this much. I'm going to do something. And
Yeah.
then that builds because once you make that active choice to do something in here goes, oh, I
Yeah.
actually did that, right? I
Yes.
did that. I
Yes.
created that balance. You know what? If I created that balance in my diet, if I created that balance right here, this segment of my life, I bet you I could create that balance in my relationships, in my
Yeah.
friendships, right? At work, whatever, however you want to apply it in whatever, aspect of life,
Yeah.
you can repeat that exact same thing.
1,000%. And on top of that, if you don't recreate that balance in those other areas of your life, then it's not going to work in your diet. Do you see what I mean? Like if you
Oh
don't
yeah,
have good relationships with your peers and your family and yourself, then your meals and your nutrition is going to suffer. Then your fitness is going to suffer. If you're not resting and recovering, then your relationships are going to suffer. Like everything
preach.
is so intertwined.
So I want to ask, and I know, and then so we were, we focused a little bit on what you're doing, current state with your coaching, and I have a couple questions on that, but
Hmm.
I have one specific question. There has been a debate, among a lot of individuals, specifically coaches, mindset coaches, um, workout coaches, whatever, but it's around the topic of burnout. And there's so many individuals that are like, no, you know what? Burnout is just a mental state. You can get past that burnout. You like it doesn't burnout shouldn't even exist. I disagree. And this is just my
Hmm.
opinion. So I'm going to ask yours. I disagree. I believe that burnout is real. I believe that you can have too many irons in the fire. I believe that, to your point, if you focus on balance,
Hmm.
that you can, I don't want to say keep burnout at bay, because if you, I don't know. I believe that getting burnt out, I believe that that can be real and it can happen, especially if balance and discipline are not a factor in somebody's world. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I 1,000% agree. I mean, I was burnt out. That's why I closed my clinical practice. I mean, I
Yeah.
changed my entire career that I trained 9 years for, right? Like 9 years, and that was just post-secondary education.
Preach.
And I closed the door on that because I was burned out. Because
Yeah.
I was giving so much of not just my time. In fact, I'd argue it was more my mental real estate that I was giving up to that job. And that's what burned me out. It wasn't
Mm.
even the time. It was I'm giving so much of my emotional and my mental capacity to my job that I'm unhappy. I'm not fulfilled. I'm resentful. I'm resentful
Yes.
to the government, not to my patients, of course, but and to the system.
Yeah.
So yeah, so burnout is definitely real. And I literally had to do a 360-degree change to get past that.
Mm. You know, thank you for that, by the way. And I go back to, thinking, so I have a 9 to 5, and then I also have RMF. And I go back to thinking, and I'm the type of guy that's like, when I see something and I'm gonna do something, oh, we're going 100%, we're going full
Yeah.
tilt boogie, right? It is
Yeah.
gonna be, and it's gonna be epic from day one. And then
Yeah.
in my head, I'm like, I can keep that steam going, right? All
All
day
day.
long, all the
Yeah.
time. And then you got relationships, you got the family, right? You've got the kids, you've got the baby, then you've got your 9 to 5, and then you've got
Yeah.
sports, and now you're doing this, and then you go, huh,
Mm.
I may have overshot this a bit. I may have bit off a bit more than I can chew, because I'm tired. And now I'm finding myself, when I'm talking to, right, the significant other, or I'm talking to family members, or even maybe Charlie's a little bit cranky, right? Or
Hmm.
one of the kids says something, and I'm like, yeah, I already said that. Like, wow,
Yeah.
what's up with you, man?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I'm fine. Oh, clearly, right?
Yeah.
But it's and then you step back and you go, oh, man,
Yes. Yep.
this is too much. And I've had to consciously take myself. It's just like going in for a workout. You're like, I'm gonna lift all of this. Let's go. And then
Mhm.
halfway through, you're like, I'm 43. I'm not
Right.
5. We're gonna we're gonna back this up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
as
just
you look,
learning.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, just learning how to pick up one and let go of another a little bit, but it's never really gone. Those
Right.
habits are always circulating. You're just kind of picking and choosing at the time that it's right. That's
A
all.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about, the coaching and who you're primarily focusing on, and the help that you're providing. As you look towards the future, and if you would touch a little bit on, I saw on LinkedIn you've been doing some speaking. As you look forward, if you touch on that, but also as you look forward to the future, what are you envisioning? Excuse me.
Well, oh gosh, yeah, it's funny, right? Because I feel like, so I've never been an entrepreneur before. This is like brand new to me. But I feel like in the entrepreneurial world, you don't even really know what's coming. Like you have to kind of put yourself out there and do something, and then you're like,
Yeah.
right? And then it's like,
Yep.
oh, this opportunity that I wouldn't had never even knew existed or thought of, like that's come up now. So I guess the main thing for me is really getting my coaching business, keeping it going, keeping the momentum going, acquiring new patients. I have to get out of the practice of calling my clients patients. They're not my patients, they're my clients. My clients. I'm trying to get new clients, obviously, growing my community, growing my beautifully raw community. And it's really awesome to start to see now, because I've been doing the active coaching for about a year and a half, but now actively seeing referrals from my past clients because they've gone through the program. They're like, this works, this is effective, this is the real deal. So that's one of my big sort of goals for the next year, is to really get clients boarding on because they see how real this program is and how it helps and how it works. So I've got my group coaching sessions, and I'm launching a new group about every 6 weeks or so.
That's awesome.
um yeah. And then of course, keeping I'm still an MD, so I love to keep my hands in that space too. So I'll probably be doing some very unrelated stuff, some surgical assisting and stuff, just to kind of keep my hands in the water, so to speak. But yeah, I had a booth at a Canadian dermatology women's conference. And that's awesome because people think like this is a group of professional women, right? Dermatologists, they're in school for so long, they're running busy practices. So what gets left behind? Their fitness, their nutrition for some of them, right? So helping women in that space, that's another kind of one of the goals that I have for the next little while. And I would love to start doing some more in-person, events, just speaking to, how to find that balance again, how to find yourself when you've discovered that you're lost. You've lost who
Yeah.
you are, you've lost your own prioritization, right? You're now at the bottom of your list. So that would be sort of another thing. I'd love to sort of get some in-person speaking events. I like doing in-person speaking events. It's a good energy, that comes with things like that. But at the same time, because we're virtual, it opens the door to us to have amazing opportunities. Like I'm starting with a new client tomorrow, actually, who's from Switzerland, believe it or not.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's so awesome, right? So it's literally being able to help anybody in the world with these
Yeah.
kinds of obstacles, which is like mind blowing to me.
Yeah. And that is like that's exactly what that is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Helping anybody in the world, wherever, overcome these obstacles, especially when it's narrowed down to your specific niche, right? You're the
Yeah,
expert in the field. You're able to connect with them on a deeper level because you are that expert, in that area. Because
yeah,
they're like, oh, there's relatability here. Therefore, I feel more trusting, right? I feel like there's been the
yes,
foundation laid. She knows what she's talking about. I'm in. How can you help me get better? And
exactly.
how can I move that needle back towards, the true north, so to speak? Um, I just had something in my mind and now it's gone. Hold on one second. Oh, so this is kind of off the cuff here, but it's gonna be on the recordings. Don't really care. So we're starting, Jennifer Yale and I are starting a community called Cornerstone, and it's actually on the Mighty Network. But I would like to extend, just because of how you've got me thinking through this narrative. I'd like to extend an invitation to you as we start to line up guest speakers for that community. I would
Yeah,
definitely love to have you on there. I mean,
awesome. I'd be
mm,
honored. Yeah, that would be awesome. Would love
woo,
to. Love, love, love.
perfect, awesome. Well, I'm definitely adding your name to the list. Um, so thank you for that. As we kind of
Yeah.
close this out, as we wrap this up, one of the things that I ask, any of the guest speakers that come on is the audience is going to try to reach out to you, right? They're gonna be like, "Hey, I really want some time with you." How do they do that? What's the best way to get hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me for sure is on Instagram. That's where
Okay.
that's my main platform. So my handle is Dr. Doriana,
Okay.
Doriana. But I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok. And then I have a website. So my website is simplyfitwellness.teachable.com.
Okay.
And I have an email, Dr. Doriana at Dr. Doriana at simplyfitwellness.com.
Hell
So
yeah.
that's my email. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm kind of everywhere.
That's awesome. Well, and I know I connected with you via, on LinkedIn. That's one of my wow, that's actually my primary platform. But one of the things that I definitely want to make sure is that, everybody has a different space that they love to congregate, that they love to go. So I want to make sure that there's a way that all of the audience members are able to, like, ooh, how do I tap her? How do I get her on my roster? Because audience, let me tell you something. You are definitely going to want to, whatever the platform is that you're most comfortable with, you're going to want to follow this warrior right here. So Doc, I really appreciate, once again, I appreciate you taking your time away from your family, from your business, to do this episode
Oh,
of the Warrior. I'm very, very grateful for
it's
you
my
making the time.
pleasure. I'm glad we finally got to connect.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. Like, I'm just going back through. I'm like, okay, this, no matter come hell or high water, this is happening because we've tried to get.
Hey, that's life, right? I
Oh yeah.
mean, that's the one thing when things come up and you both kind of live similar, lifestyles, it just makes for a whole new level of understanding, right? Like,
Ab-
stuff comes up and you have to reschedule.
absolutely, it does. And that's like, you know, that's the beauty of this. So I'll tell you this. I was asked one time, "Hey, you're the show, like, you're the host of a podcast. So, um, like, do you always have your tattoos out? Do you always have like a ball cap? Like, you do not, are you gonna dress up at any time?" And I laughed because I said, I could do that. And don't get me wrong, there's times where I do dress up.
Yeah, yeah.
But don't get me wrong. I said, this is me, and I want everybody, that's the show, the Way of the Warrior show isn't about me. It's about you, right? It's
Yeah.
about getting your message out. But more importantly, it's not even about this. It's about the message of greater purpose, of promoting goodness into what we know is already a massively dark planet, right? I think of
Yep.
Charlie, I know, and the kids, and Easton Auburn, and I know you think of, I think you think of yours, right?
Yep.
What impact are we having right now that's going to set them up for a brighter future and a better place, right?
Yep. Yep. 1,000%. Yeah. Love it. Love
Oh, hell yeah. Well, hey,
it.
once again, thank you so much for being a part of this. Audience, thank you for tuning in. And that's going to wrap up this session. So we'll see you next time. Doc, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Trevor.
No problem.